And welcome everyone to this session. It is session 14. Last week we had decided to take a break, so we could not, do any session. But this week we have two amazing, very special people, educators from different parts of the world, and it will be an amazing discussion to, compare notes, as Bettina rightly said. So please welcome Bettina Buchholtz from Denmark. She's an intercultural educator, an English teacher, and actually a linguistics teacher, not only English but other languages as well. And please welcome Mr. Abdel Rahman from Egypt. He's a mathematics teacher. He's building on his skills, and he's a really really passionate educator like the rest of us. Um, Please, guys, we would like to know a little bit more about things which are happening in your countries. So I think I'll just go alphabetically. So Abdel, please go ahead, begin.
Okay, so we decided to discuss and compare the lesson learned from teachers and organizations and students too during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to discuss is how the teachers responded to the pandemic during the pandemic, because as you know, the pandemic was full of uncertainty. People, teachers, everyone didn't know how to deal with it or what's going to happen, so I can prepare myself. So you don't know how will you prepare yourself as a teacher, okay? And at this time, like if you are a therapist, you need a therapist because you know what's going on, okay? So the first thing was how did the teachers feel about the pandemic? Okay, well, the common feeling we all felt was uncertainty, and we still feel it. But by the time this the intensity of the uncertainty feeling decreases. But at first, the uncertainty affected three aspects. Okay, the performance and the kids and the schools and organizations. Okay, so in terms of performance, most of the teachers were either excited to know what will happen as this will develop the level of education, and you might see this and touch this in as much of schools and ministries are implementing new technologies that without Corona, this wouldn't have implemented. Okay, so at first it was bad, but now we are seeing it a real change. Okay, unfortunately because of a bad thing. Okay, then we talk about the guidance, how the teachers dealt with the pandemic with the kids or with their students. So some teachers loaded up on their students. Okay, so they had the pressure and they wanted to lift that pressure on them to get it on their students' shoulders and their parents, because the education process wasn't only upon the student but also his parents, because he's not that responsible to know what he will do, how he can handle in such difficult time. Okay, so it wasn't only the student himself but also the parent. Okay, and for example, like I know my cousin has 3 kids, and she's literally every day she wakes up before everyone and comes to set with every child so she can make sure that he's ready for his classes every day. Okay, so if the teachers, some teachers did appreciate that and did make some plans for it so they can ease the process on the parents, so they can decrease the amount of anxiety that they know it's in the home already and in the houses. Okay, and some loaded up on their students because they have the pressure but they don't know how to handle it. Okay, so they give all the pressure that they have on the student's shoulder. Okay, well, this is it for teachers for now. If you want to switch to Bettina, I would like to hear more.
Sure, sure. I mean, absolutely. Thank you so much for that small introduction, Abdel. Bettina, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure that in Denmark the situation was exactly the same. I think online teaching is not so foreign for us as such, but the situation where children don't meet up physically is obviously has never been tried before. And just to give a context also, that the lockdown was of course complete in Denmark, even privately. So children would not see their usual friends. What was recommended was that they selected one, maybe two friends, and then those would be the playmates throughout the whole period, so that you only mixed with kind of a limited number of people. So socially, the children were very isolated also. I think teachers seem to have approached this with a passion. A lot of them made plans for their classes. They made daily plans, so they didn't just load on material. They made plans for the kids so that they would know each day what to do, why, what to get out of it. There would be not daily contact with students, but from teachers, but at least every week. And there would also be access to teachers if there were things that the students didn't understand and didn't know how to do. So in that way, a lot of teachers apparently have done a good job. But when I read, there was a survey made actually on this precise topic. How did everybody experience it? And when I read the total results, so this was a survey that covered around 6,000 students, answers from 6,000 students aged 9 to 16, and 5,000 parents. So this is a big survey. And overall, the result is a big positive feedback on the teacher's performance. But when I read into this survey, it seems that this was not just the teachers. This was a result of a big collaboration, both from parents, between parents and teachers, and also, of course, from parents to students. And lastly, also an understanding on part of the students about this very special situation. So I think the best way to sum up was a question that asked, do students actually feel part of a class or the normal study environment? Do they actually feel that? Or are they like totally isolated? And actually a majority of the students responded they did. So somehow on the social side and also on the technical side, teachers managed to create fora that allowed students to still feel that they were part of the group of learning. Yeah, so different experiences. So I can't really match Abdel's description like that, but yeah.
Right. Yes. So that's quite different. I mean, what happened in Denmark and what happened in Egypt, because as you mentioned, I mean, the children are still in contact with the teachers in a physical sense as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Egypt, they were restricted to their homes.
But they were in contact online, not physically.
Yes. Oh,
so
okay, not
contact.
physically.
Yeah,
all right.
access to the teachers and access to explanations. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Okay.
Abdel?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Abdel.
I'm just, the thing I noticed, the part that I really liked is when teachers approached the situation with passion. So they didn't know they have to prepare new plans for their students. It's not the same plans as the previous one, where mostly what happened in Egypt, or let's say 90%, was that approached it with the same situation. Like they didn't take time to invent or to think for new ways that can help the students. Okay, that's it. And I think that's the major difference that can predict what will happen in the future and what results will we see in the future between either the students of either sides.
Right. So Jasleen, before you ask a question, why don't we, we also explain to Bettina and Abdel how teachers in India kind of managed this entire situation so far. And I think Jasleen and Pallavi are more qualified to answer this than I am. So guys, please go ahead.
Yeah. So Bettina and Abdul, like I have worked in capacity of a teacher, like while I was working with Teach for India. So here, like India being a very diverse country, different regions, different cultures, different realities. So we don't have one fit solution for everybody. Like when we talk about international private schools, I think private schools were very quick to adapt to online teaching. They could collaborate with a lot of private players like Byju's, Extra Marks, EdTech companies, and implement online learning for the children. Like obviously this teachers struggled initially because tech teaching is very very new to our country, especially like we've never ever had classes online before like this pandemic. But the point remains, like the private schools were very quick to adapt, but when it comes to government school, I think it's still struggling because 70% of the students, like they do not even have devices in our country. Like when we talk about marginalized section and children from humble underprivileged background, they do not have devices. So I think these teachers are quite like, sorry my dog. So so
He's very insistent.
So these teachers, I'm so sorry. So these teachers, like especially teachers in the government schools, they're struggling a lot. Like ensuring attendance, ensuring internet devices. Like even in the the rural regions and semi-rural regions, we do not have adequate infrastructures, resources, and even that kind of environment at home which students can pick up online learning. So I think here things are quite diverse when we talk about private, public sector. And I just want somebody to take a head from here to my dog. Sit down.
Pallavi,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
So, because I have been working with an university, so we are in the foundation year, so we are going to start. So I have resigned, but I have seen one thing which is a big problem. So today there was a session where like 3 schools were called. So this whole thing of online education has kind of forced 60% of the students to drop out. Like there is no way the students are joining. So finally the session was cancelled. This is just few minutes I joined this session that I got to know. The person mailed me. So you can understand that it's not just because of internet issues, but also this whole concept of being available online. This is what I heard in Saurav's video also yesterday, which Saurav said, like this death by webinar, this whole thing. So people are exhausted. Children are exhausted. And then I was taking trainings, a lot of trainings with kids from Northeast. Like, I don't know if you have heard about part of India. So it's very sad to see that people do not have access to internet, and even if they have access to internet, they are not able to come online. If they are coming online, there are a lot of background noises. They have to switch off the video, audio. So I think the physical teaching thing, somehow students told me that they still miss it. And when a teacher sees you and teaches you, like writes in the like in the board, or the teacher comes to you and tells you whether you understood it, I think that is missing. Like I understand that this whole concept of teaching online, yeah, see, it's so easy for us to interact being in a different country. So I think that's the positive aspect of it also. But then somehow I feel teachers are having problems, some of the teachers, because like not everyone is tech savvy. That is one thing. And second thing, like you see how we were not able to, you saw like we were having issues in going online, and then your internet was not. So I think somehow we are facing a lot of challenges. And then yeah, Saurav can tell it better. Saurav has been
So I
doing
just
a
want
lot
to
of.
add a point, like a small point. Again, like Bettina and Abdul, I just want to mention you must have heard like India is not a very gender equal country. And when it comes to India, like the responsibility of teaching in school we have mostly female teachers. So female teachers, like, they get up early, they are responsible for the school, they are responsible, to cater to the needs of the children, then family, then household stuff. So I think the women are getting burdened with a lot of responsibilities these days. Why I'm talking about, like, why I'm bringing this aspect, because when it comes to schooling in India, 80% of the teachers employed in government and mostly in private schools are female, like, females. So I think the entire situation is getting very, very panicky, for them as well. So this is another aspect that is playing very, very loudly in our country as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. I mean, that is absolutely correct. I can add probably add just one more bit, because I come from the test prep industry in India, which is almost as big as the school industry or the school ecosystem. So it was a clear in India. It was a clear division between the haves and the have-nots. The only difference is the digital haves and the digital have-nots. So people who did have the technology and the means to use it, they benefited, but the others could not. So my question is, I mean, to Abdel, Abdel, Jasleen just mentioned how a lot of pressure in India, at least, is on the female teachers, because they're also mothers, they're also taking care of the household. Is it something similar in Egypt as well? Because you mentioned about your cousin who has to get up really early in the morning and manage the education of the children and the household.
I mean, the pressure wasn't like, you can't compare, or of course the female. Do you hear me clearly?
Hear you
Can you
clearly.
repeat that?
Yeah, just repeat.
Okay, I think, like, at such time, okay, the pressure, and in normal times, the pressure is always higher on the female side in the home. Okay, they have to do so many things to their students, while the focus on education matters and the house are always put on the shoulders of the female side, of the mothers. Okay, so it's a normal thing. But when pandemic came in, like, the pressure goes higher, went higher in all sides, like on all, like, on parents and on mothers, but of course on female it was higher.
All right.
Okay, so they had also to be with the teachers and to prepare for the lessons and to see the homeworks get done and all of that stuff. Like, and for my example, like, I had my cousin tried to invent new things to do, because she was overwhelmed because of the so many tasks that applied upon her that she had to do every day. Okay. Likewise with every house in Egypt. But the thing are not like are not that motivated.
Abdel, you're breaking up.
So Bettina, I would like to hear from you as well, like this gender disparity, like the one that I mentioned. Like, I've heard that somehow it definitely exists in India, and somehow it exists in Egypt as well. But do you see similar trends in your country as well, and the other parts of Europe?
I'm back.
No, I was thinking, so for instance, okay, all the kids in our home are grown up and moved away. So over and done. But I think that the distribution of responsibility for helping children, I think, will generally be according to what you know. So I'm really good at languages. I'm really good at that kind of stuff. They ask me a question about math. I can't help them, but luckily my partner can. I think this is normal in most homes. This will be depending on who's best at helping. I think in general, the household situation very much rests on both the father and the mother. There is a tendency for women to take over more, but I think that's also because they prefer it so. They like it their way, and I think men are maybe not struggling to get it their way because it's not so important to them. But I think it's not an inherent gender thing. I think it's very much depending on the person, and also with the kids. Yeah.
Okay. Abdel, welcome back, I guess. You were saying something, but you were cut off. Would you like to complete? Okay.
I mean, I would say that the same that Bettina said. Okay.
All right.
But mostly it's on the female side or on the mothers.
Well, that's a very interesting insight, actually, from this comparative analytical discussion that
I don't
we're
know
doing.
if you can hear me clearly or not. I don't know what's happening with the connectivity.
We can hear you, Abdel, but you're breaking up.
So another thing that as a group would like to hear, like you must you're private school teachers, so we'd like to hear more about the public schooling system in your countries, how they're doing, how they're different. That'll be great if you could give us insights on that.
Yeah. We had well, we had diverse education systems here in Egypt. Okay, but the teachers of every system, like except for the public schools. Okay, teachers in public schools, I served in public schools, and I didn't see teachers as motivated as I was motivated as a trainee. Okay. But in private schools, when I started to contact teachers and try to know the differences, okay, I saw different types of teachers. Maybe some of them are the same teachers of the public schools who are not very motivated or not passionate. They're just doing their job as a normal employee and any. At any job. Okay, so they don't separate or distinguish the rule as a teacher from any rule. Okay, so they perceive it as like I have enough trainings and I have enough knowledge, and I will live teaching that way for the rest of my life. I won't look for any kind of development. But they were private facilities or private schools that it forces their employees to work on themselves, because the more they work on themselves, the more they can deliver better results year by year for their students, because they care, they have like a caring system where they deliver workshops on regular basis, and they deliver like so many programs for their teachers before their students. So they take care of students, of teachers first. Okay, they try to equip them with the best tools, the best workshops, courses, online courses. Okay, and as you can see from the last 3 months or so, you can see that they were booming on online courses generally. So anyone who wasn't concerned about online courses and how it will impact his future, okay, now he can see the real opportunity in front of himself. Okay. Another point is, and I have to say it honestly, the ministry here in Egypt is doing so many things in so many directions in order.
I think we lost him.
Yeah. That's a shame. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah.
should just have a picture and just we have the sound, because I think the bandwidth is not big enough for him.
Let's try that.
Yeah. So Bettina, in meanwhile,
Can
like,
you
can
hear
you share?
me?
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't know
Abdel, you
what's
can
happening
keep
with the
your cam.
connectivity today because it didn't happen
You can keep your
when you
camera
dialed.
off and you can just speak in
Yeah.
case like the internet is
Abdel, how
problem.
about trying just having a picture? I think it'll help on your internet connection.
Okay.
So that we can hear your voice only. Yeah.
Okay. So another side, another thing which is about the Ministry of Education. It tried to implement, first of all, during the pandemic, okay, we had the most important exams that won by the ministry is the high school exams, okay? In Egypt, we call it ثانوية عامة, okay? And it's the one that most of us got worried about and their performance at that year, okay? The last year of high school. The ministry took a whole new approach, which was at that time where everyone and every ministry were deciding to keep students at home, where Corona was at its peak in Egypt. They decided they are going to have the process going as it's going every year, but with the safety precautions, like to have a face mask, the social distance, and the same with the stuff. And it worked, and the results was normal, but comparing to that year of COVID was stunning, comparing with other education systems like an IGCSE, okay, and the American diploma, because they had a cancelled trial in that year. One thing I also have to mention is they did a collaboration with Edmodo, the online platform. If you have heard about it, okay. After the pandemic happened, okay, Edmodo is a very famous platform for online education, where it's like Facebook but for online education, okay, where you could, or like Google Classroom, okay. And suddenly it tried to create more workshops for students, for teachers, okay, so they can have their students in their in their classes, okay, online. Another thing also the ministry tried to do for public schools, where they are now, yesterday they decided they will be working with by the flipped classroom system, okay, or the if you know flipped classroom, where you teach online and then go and practice in front of your students, so you kind of increase the productivity of your students, okay, and they expect what they are going to receive and they become more prepared for it, so the performance will be higher, okay. And it was surprising for me as someone who aims not to be a teacher and in the public school system, okay. So I think the ministry here and public schools are doing such we can say that they are aiming for the good, but I don't know how to be implemented with mainly most teachers are not that motivated, because whenever I meet a teacher in public school, they really demotivate me. I don't feel any optimistic and with those teachers, with the teachers of public schools, but I seem very optimistic with what ministry are doing here in Egypt.
That's very interesting, actually. So there's also so that means what you're saying is there's a central push from the government authorities also to push blended learning and flipped classroom kind of an approach into all the schools. So that's very interesting. Bettina, I mean, how are things in Denmark, and what innovations, if there are any, which have been employed so far?
I'm not updated in terms of specific attempts, but I mean, learning has a very central role in Denmark on all levels, from children to adults and throughout the whole life of a person. And I think the focus, if you look at the output from universities, what they focus on when they train new teachers, the courses that you take if you want to become a teacher, they all focus on learner-centered approaches. So in other words, the role of the teacher is more the role of a facilitator, not of a knowledgeable person or an expert. But of course, the more expert you are, the better you will be at facilitating a process for a learner. And so I think when it comes to, for instance, motivation, I know we were talking before about the difference between private and public schools. I think teachers in general in Denmark are highly motivated to be creative, regardless. Public, private, doesn't matter. So many teachers will take on the task of teaching as a kind of creative communications project to make it as learner-centered as they possibly can. Of course, following guidelines from ministry and such. I think the difference between public and private is probably going to be found in access to resources. Obviously, in the public sector, people will have to make do, there are limitations, all of that. Private schools a little bit better off. Maybe also time-wise, maybe in the way the work is organized, they get more hours to actually create teaching sessions that are more engaging. But engagement and motivation are really, really big things here. And then you will see that all over in every recommendation from the public authorities, you will see that this is what we're looking for in any kind of teaching context. I know that, I think the learnings from the Corona period in terms of how much online teaching there should be. I think the survey showed that, I think it was 92% of the students responded, not very surprisingly, that they did prefer the physical environment. And these were the kids, but Palabi, I'm sure that this also goes for university students. Death by webinar is a real thing. You know, it's terrible at the length of it, but I think there are no plans now to increase the level of online teaching if there isn't a need for it. I think we're very much focused on the physical possibilities, but I suppose more blended learning, I think flipped classroom, Abdel, has been a big thing in Denmark for many, many years, and using online resources in teaching has been a very big thing, also set out by recommendations, official recommendations. So the integration of online usage is a big thing, also simply to make sure that all kids grow up knowing what the internet is and how to use it. I don't know if that answered the question.
So absolutely. I mean, that definitely answered the question in a lot of ways. What we would like to know more is, so since, I mean, Denmark is, has been using flipped classroom and other technologies for quite some time now. So the transition to a new way of education, as compared to, let's say, India or even Egypt for that matter, to a certain extent, would have been shorter. That's what our expectation is. So that's what we want to know. Like, was it a big transition for teachers and students to, get used to the digital learning way or not?
I don't think it was. I think it was surprisingly easy. And I think a lot of teachers would kill me for saying this, because obviously it's not easy to transform a plan for physical teaching when everybody's there and then suddenly transform it with the high ambition of making it engaging, making it, in little pieces so the students can learn. That's always the high ambition. And I'm sure that the teachers, each and every one of them, were struggling, but the mindset for doing it and the mindset, and I think this is a very important aspect which needs to be discussed much more, the mindset of the students and also the parents for receiving this type of education and for being able to organize their day and their learning experience at home privately. That was also in place. So obviously I think it was Jasleen that mentioned before that not all students have access to online equipment. Internet connections can be an issue. I know it can be a big issue in Egypt. So all of that is not an issue here. Even the most underprivileged kids have access to internet at home. And they have devices for doing so. But I think the biggest difference is probably going to be in how both students and parents approach the learning situation. That it's not a question of waiting for the teacher to do something. The teacher does something, and then students and parents will have their own agenda for what to do with it. So a very independent approach to learning, which is focused, again, on the learner-centered experience. And I think that's the biggest thing when you talk about, was it an easy transition or not? I think the hardest part was, as I think in all countries, the social dimension. The lack of physical closeness, the friends missing, the whole atmosphere missing, access to a teacher when you need it, like you're used to. That was a problem, as it would be internationally. But the mindset was in place.
Right. I have a small question here. So as you said, that Denmark was kind of prepared for this transition because even the most underprivileged people have access to internet and devices. There were a couple of studies done in France and the US, and they were really literally surprised to see that not a lot of people, like quite a lot of people in France and the US did not have access to good quality internet or devices for education. Do you have any comments on the rest of the Europe as well? Any other countries which probably were in the similar boat as Denmark? They were good enough, or they had enough infrastructure available, or there are countries like France, bigger countries like France, who were not prepared?
I think Denmark, maybe Scandinavia, but I know Denmark is extremely focused on digital tools and online communication and using online tools for almost anything. I mean, our entire public sector is now online. There is no place you can visit physically to deal with normal administrative stuff. It's online, everything. Banks are online. Everything is online, online, online. So we're very big on that. If you go to Germany, not at all. They don't know how to deal with stuff. It's not the technical lack of knowledge. It's not that they don't know where to press, which buttons to press. It's not that. And they have internet, but it's the culture for using it. So it just goes to say that the background is not just because I'm a culture person, but it is actually the people's expectations to how things work will often determine where they look for answers. So if they're not used to using online tools, it'll be like, they don't know where to look for answers. They don't know how to provide answers more smoothly. So the whole process becomes hindered. And I think that this is so I know that, for instance, internet and tools for internet in the States is definitely not a given. It is a privileged thing, and it's usually expensive even. And so it's not so much to do with what part of the world we're in. I think it's very much to do with expectations to what role should this online thing play even. So there are many layers of issues here.
I think that's a great point when you mention like it is more related to the culture and how people welcome the change. Sorry, we have a question. I was asking Saurabh if he has a question.
No, go ahead, Jasleen.
So, we've heard about, the good side of the education system in Denmark, how inclusive it is, how accommodating, tech savvy and everything. So I just want to hear, like, what are the challenges in your education system? Because I'm sure, like, different education system has its own challenges. Like in our country, I've mentioned, like, the challenges are humongous. But when it comes to Denmark, are there any challenges?
course they are. But everything is, of course, relative. I think if you ask teachers, the challenges will be in terms of resources, organizing time, but this is linked also to their ambition of creating engaging teaching. So if you just look at the hours that they're teaching, it might not be like, okay, what's the problem, you might feel. But it's all related to their ambition of how much you actually should be discussing this with colleagues so that you can really get the best product, all of that. So that's what a teacher will often feel. I think the number of students in a Danish classroom is around 24 or something. So it's not that challenging, it's fine. I think what we mostly hear when we talk about challenges, it is actually more on the social dimension side. The students that come to school, their backgrounds matter a lot in terms of how much they get out of it and how much they take away from their schooling. So what you could say is that this high ambition, this focus on learner-centered learning, all of this actually also challenges the students that show up. So if the students are not qualified, so to speak, to adopt to this very independent requirement for what you should do as a student, they tend to fall off. And so there was about, in the survey, there was about 10% consistently, answers 10%, that felt that they did not learn what they were supposed to, that they could not understand what they were supposed to, that it was a problem with the online teaching. And I think that's fairly representative of students that simply cannot hang on to the style of teaching. So it's a different type of problem. It's not, you know, it's difficult for me to describe, like compare to what I hear from India, also from Egypt. It's a very different, but it's on the mental side, it's on the mindset side that it's difficult. So you have students that come from different cultures that are not used to this type of learning. They will have problems because, again, a lot of things are assumed, you know, okay, you know you're supposed to do this without me telling you, but they don't know, so they don't do it. And so they're not able to follow. And somehow the system doesn't necessarily have a solution for that. It's like a big train just running fast. So, yeah.
So I had a very, so I made a small observation when you said, you know, the parents, since it's a child, you know, centered learning design in Denmark. So obviously whoever is the facilitator, maybe the teacher, maybe the parent, needs to understand the needs of the child at that particular moment, right? Do you think, or was there any kind of attempt to educate the parents so that they understand this kind of system and the teachers were telling them, okay, now you need to do this, now you need to help them out in this way or something like that? There were.
And there was actually also a question in the survey, did the parents feel that they were getting the help they needed to carry out homeschooling? And I think, what did I say? I think 80%, 60%, no, 80% of the parents actually felt helped. So again, that's pretty consistent. It's the majority, but there's still like a small percentage because it requires so much of you. If you're not able to provide that, you're outside the group. But yeah, they did receive help, whatever help. I don't know what kind of help. Maybe they were able to call the teachers. I wouldn't be surprised. This is quite normal in Denmark that you can call teachers and have a talk with them. So yeah.
Okay. So I had one more question. I mean, Bettina, because the conversation is going in such a nice direction here. So when the children are studying at home and the parents are supposed to, you know, facilitate their entire education system, did that increase the number of hours that the parents had to put in daily to not only managing work from home, managing the household and the education? Because I know in Denmark, it's a very big topic to talk about the number of hours that you work in a week, right? So, so how was there a conversation going on like that?
Certainly. I think that parents with kids in school felt a tremendous pressure because they both had to carry out their own work. They had to help their kids do their work. As you said, had to take care of the household. And even though it was not just on the women's shoulders, it just became a very big issue. And I suppose unless you live in a really big house where you can work in peace in certain areas, the mere fact that everybody's home is not just a question of hours, but the mere fact that everybody's home and talking, doing different things at the same time is going to be a major distraction. And at the end of the day, it's going to be really, really stressful. And it was, I know it was hard for many parents to do this so that they were satisfied.
Wow. And one last comment I would like to have from you is regarding the mental health situation because of the increased number of work hours and obviously COVID-19 and, you know, staying with the children all the time when you're not used to, and the children staying with the parents when the children are not used to staying with the parents. Was there any data available? Is there any survey done on those aspects? Because again, Denmark is one of the most advanced countries when it comes to, you know, mapping the mental health of the population.
Certainly. I haven't seen any, but there were so many funny jokes, which I think is indicative of what people were thinking, that suddenly people realized that their children were irritating, not because of the teachers, because they were also irritating at home. And so, you know, a lot of things transpired in terms of increased togetherness with your kids. And this was, you know, I think a lot of teachers felt vindicated by that. So, but I think it passed because the period was so long. I think to begin with, it was a big challenge for parents to be so much together with their kids and also have to do so much. And, you know, it was a big challenge, but because it was such a long period of time, I think people found a routine. I hope they did. But yeah, there was a lot of talk about this realization that this was actually a challenge. I mean, normally you have this rosy picture that everything is fine in a family and everybody loves each other, but you know, when you're together 24 and it's, yeah.
So I have
I think it's a reality of everywhere.
Precisely, yeah.
Pallavi, your
Yeah, so
voice is not clear. Your mic is kind of muted.
Sure.
Huh.
Yeah.
Fine.
I have a question. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what has happened with India? So a lot of children are having issues. Parents are having issues. They're saying that when the children used to go to schools, like they were in school, they were outside. But when now parents are at home, children are at home, so a lot of noise and everything. Classes are not happening properly. It's like it's constant distraction for the parents also, for the children also, and a lot of conflicts are arising. Like a lot of conflicts are arising. A lot of domestic violence is happening. Not just because people are like that, but it is just that because of the situation, people are getting irritated, annoyed, too much of togetherness. Like, what do you think? Like, what opinion do you have with this whole scenario? Like, how do you look at it, or how is it happening in Denmark? Because in India, like, because I'm working in gender, like, violence has increased to a high stage, like, lot of violence at home also. Children are also facing a lot of issues, like, with mental health and everything. How do you see to it?
I don't have statistics, but I know the divorce rates went up. I'm not sure domestic violence. I would guess it went up. All the conflict levels went up, like everywhere else. As you say, it's not because of people themselves, but the pressure and also I think the uncertainty of Corona. What is this even going to do? Are we ever going to get back to the life we knew before all this? The powerlessness of it all creates an added pressure. So it's been a tremendously hard time. And I think for Danes as well, I've lived a life of luxury. You know, I just live here with my partner and we have a big house. So I haven't experienced it, but when I hear what people say, it's crushing. Yeah.
Abdel, welcome back. So I think the internet is not kind to us today for this session. So Abdel, I had a question for you. So you said, you know, the Ministry of Education is making so many changes now, and that's amazing. That's really, you know, endearing to hear. Do you think, first of all, do you think that these changes the Ministry of Education would have made these changes if the corona pandemic never happened?
I think these are an advancements to some previous decisions they were taking. Like since that new minister came, he decided he wanted to implement the blended learning, to have access to get all students in all public schools have tablets in their hands. So if you go to any high school in Egypt, all around Egypt, they give the students tablets and students don't pay anything, just to give them access to educational materials from the ministry. Also, 2 years ago, the ministry and the Ministry of Higher Education have launched a platform called Egyptian Knowledge Bank, which was about to give every Egyptian student with his ID the ability to enter that platform that has so many online courses and online books and researches and access to webinars from universities from abroad and all of that stuff. All of that happened before Corona. I can say that there are small tweaks that happened when Corona came, okay? But before Corona, there were big changes, okay? But you can't implement these changes successfully if you don't have motivated and excited teachers to implement them. Because how would you implement your vision when you don't have people who believe in your vision, okay? This is the thing, okay? But some students, some teachers, I can say a ratio in every 5 teachers, you can say 2 are working very hard on this new system, and 3 are not very excited or too excited. But what's happening is, and I think it's a good side of Corona because of the pressure, because pressure isn't always bad. It also has it's a good side, because when you have an exam and you are pressured, all of what you're gonna do, either you work hard in order to pass the exam and get a good grade, or you fail, okay? And most of us hate failing. So you would go and use that pressure in your benefit, okay? So I think Corona pushed so many teachers to know that if they are not working enough on their skills and on how they will deal with students in the future, they won't have a place, okay, in such system. Because I think that's a huge advantage of automated system and EdTech, okay? No one will be controlling you. Like all what we'll see is results, okay? If your results are good, if you can handle so many diverse education situation, then I can rely on you as a school and as a ministry and as a parent, okay?
So that's very interesting, no, Abdel. I mean, if the pressure is helping create changes in the system or various systems as in Egypt, do you think this momentum will continue, or there is lethargy setting in, or do you think because in India at least we do have government systems, they are changing things, but then again they become lazy and they stop functioning properly. Do you think the same kind of momentum will continue in Egypt next year or maybe 2 years down the line, because Corona is not going away anytime soon?
I think it definitely will, because the changes are not being held by the ministry or the country itself. It will be also by the parents and the teachers, because the public education in Egypt, which has the majority of students, rely a lot on private sessions or private tutoring, okay? They don't only rely on the amount of on the lessons they get in the class. They only go to the class because it's such a routine thing. But what really parents rely on and depend on, and students also, is online is private sessions. And now with Corona, it's converted to Zoom meetings and Zoom sessions. And let me tell you an experience of mine where my cousin, but this is a younger one, who is a student at the high school, and he was at the last year in high school, what will determine at which college will he study. Corona hit at, I think in Egypt, lockdown happened at March, and then from March to June, his exams will begin in June. So he did study with himself, but also some teachers managed to know about Zoom meetings and Google Meet and started to do their online sessions as they were before, but on Zoom meetings. And this benefited the my cousin, and he would tell everyone about that teacher is a very updated one, and very educated. He can teach you any situation. Okay, and this is the kind of teachers you will trust. He might be the best mathematician in the world, but he's not very updated in terms of how will he deliver the information to you. Okay, so if you are not comfortable with whether will you receive it or not, okay, so you won't be able to learn from the first place.
Well, that's good to know. One more question, Abdel, because the situation in Egypt is so strikingly similar to in India, because a lot of students in India also depend on private tutoring. Do you think that children are getting used to this, technology?
Clearly, can you repeat it?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Because
So,
I'm not hearing you.
all right. So what I was saying was, do you think the students, they have gotten used to, this new way of learning, and obviously it's not efficient or it's not optimal, but they also know that, the pandemic is going to continue for some more time. Are they getting used to it? Are they learning to perform with whatever it is, or there are high dropout rates as well?
I think as I will use some of Bettina's words when the students are not that excited for or that uh, the kind of online learning will last, because we need physical interaction. We are all social beings, okay, so let's say we had so many hours meeting, but one meeting when we are staying face to face, okay, when we are seeing each other, it will matter. Like, it's not like we are all having online sessions. Okay, we are not doing our first thing that can uh, satisfy us, which is human interaction. Okay, but I think it definitely useful, as now everyone is in several countries, but when you are in one country, in one city, and you're not able to meet your friend or to meet your teacher and to see them, I think that will cause a huge gap between all of us and between ourselves. Okay, when you feel like there's nothing new. And also,
Saurav, you are
seen,
muted.
Sorry, please go ahead, Abdel.
there was and it's happened by coincidence, FBI negotiator called Chris Voss. He said he would fly thousands miles in order to meet someone to negotiate for a hostage, because he wants to see himself eye to eye. So this human interaction can definitely change the whole process of the negotiation by being interacting with someone in front of him eye to eye.
Right. Well,
I think huge area of research are being held on this topic, as I think it will affect our mental health, all of us. because you might as well, as you know, it's bad, but when something's bad happens to you, maybe you'll be affected in future by it. When you go to a coffee shop and you get your coffee and you find a friend, but now you don't have the willingness to sit with anyone. You want to sit with with yourself, and you don't want to sit with anyone else. And so it kind of unintentionally will affect us and will affect the students. And we have to be updated with what the research papers say.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, well, thank you so much, guys. It's been amazing having both of you. And I think
I will stop the video for.
Right. And but unfortunately we're out of time. I think we should definitely continue the conversation. We'll probably do this in a much better way. But thank you so much for being here and sharing with us all these insights. That's about it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bettina and Abdul, for joining us and sharing so much about your countries.
It was a pleasure.
It's a great learning experience for all of us.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a great forum. I think you're discussing really relevant and interesting stuff. So it's a pleasure to join.
Thank you.
Abdel, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the internet. Otherwise, it was good. So thank you so much, both Bettina and so hope to catch up with you soon again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.